Today, we'll look what happened to the Estonia in the mid-1990s. How deadly the loss of stability owing to a free surface effect led to her sinking. It was September 27, 1994, and the cruise ferry Estonia was completing her loading in Tallinn's harbor. She was 155 meters in length and had a gross tonnage of 15,000 tons. With a capacity of roughly 2,000 passengers and over 400 automobiles, she was the mix of a cruise liner and a ferry called cruise ferry. To get vehicles on board, she had to open at the bow at the outer section of a visor gave weather protection and form a part of the outer hull. When in port, that would hinge up and up, exposing the loading ramp, which could lower down onto the quay so the traffic would drive straight onto the vehicle deck. In the late afternoon that day, she finished loading. The ramp closed, closing the deck, and the visor bow was lowered, protecting the ramp. She left the port around 7 p.m. to begin her journey to Stockholm, Sweden, where she was scheduled to arrive at 9:30 a.m. next morning. Throughout the evening, Estonia continued its trip, speeding up to the wind and weather grew stronger. The wind had picked up to 30 or 40 knots from the southwest before midnight, with 3 to 4 meter waves. At around midnight, the ship altered course to a heading of 287 degrees at a planned wave point, placing the weather on the port bow. She was pitching and rolling quite a lot, so to improve, she extended her fin stabilizers. Crucially though, fin stabilizers can dampen the roll, but they don't do anything to help the pitching. And that pitching motion meant the bow was rising up and down, slamming into the waves. The visor takes the full impact of each wave. A big bang was reported at around 1 a.m. At the bottom, the visor fastening in bolt had failed. The visor swung around for the next 15 minutes or so, damaging the hull and loading ramp. Water began to penetrate the car deck where the seal had been damaged along the edges of the ramp. Within the next 15 minutes, the visor broke free completely, ripping the ramp open and failing away, striking the bulbous bow as it sank. Given the wide open nature of the vehicle deck, the free surface effect from the water entering it rapidly led to a complete loss of stability. As more and more water entered the vehicle deck, cars and lorries broke free. The free surface effect meant the Estonia rapidly developed a list over starboard. Particularly of Estonian design meant that the bow visor was not visible from the navigational bridge due to the accommodation. They only had the indication panel, but that showed everything was okay. Because of the sensors were still in place, the officer had no idea had broken free. They assumed that the list was caused by the weather, so they tried altering course to change their relatively direction, though, and ultimately, the maneuver actually accelerated the list, which passed 90 degrees in a matter of minutes. Given the Estonia location, the first formal Mayday call was issued at around 2:20:01. However, it was not called up by the shore stations. The passenger ferry Silja Europa was the first to recognize it. The Europa began handling the emergency radio traffic as its first responding vessel. Estonia made her final radio communication at around 10 minutes later, and she was able to give Europa her position. As the gravity of the situation became obvious, more and more ships began to report for assistance. The rescue plan was launched by the Marine Control Center in Turku, which took care of the entire operation and activated standby planes. At around 1:50 in the morning, Estonia Echo disappeared from the radar screen in the area where she sank below the surface. 20 minutes later, the Mariela was the first ship to arrive on the scene. At around 3 a.m., the first helicopter arrived, started winching survivors from the water onto the ships. Only 3 hours after the sinking, 4 helicopters and 8 vessels were already on scene. Throughout the day, effort was made to search and save survivors. Sadly, out of 989 people on board, only 136 were rescued alive, 34 by ship, 134 by helicopters. Today, the wreck of Estonia still lays in the international waters in the spot where she came to rest that night. That's it.